Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon on this live webinar where we will take you through how to finalise your CA diary and how to apply for membership to progress from student to ACA. So for this presentation, we will cover your eligibility to submit an application to membership. We'll go through the step-by-step guide. We'll spend some time on the common errors that we come across when we are reviewing your record. We will talk briefly on the audit qualification and its significance at this point when you're completing your CA diary. And again, we will direct you in to the supports and resources on the CA diary resources page of the website. My name is Orna Coyne and I'm joined by my colleagues Rebecca Keegan and Hugh Carroll, as well as Rose Cotter from the admissions team. If you have any questions, we'd ask that you drop them into the question function on your screen. So firstly, just to acknowledge how far you have come. You, at this point, should be have finished your training contract or very soon will be finishing your training contract and eligible to submit an application to membership. But the finish line isn't here quite yet. So your application to membership is dependent on two strands. So you need to have firstly your CA diary completed, as well as a successful result of your FEEs. Together, they will give you the option to submit an application to membership. And at that point, and only at that point, you can use the designation ACA. So as we say, it's a stepped process that you need to follow in order to get to that stage. You need to complete your period of training, and once that has been completed on the CA Diary platform, you become eligible for a final review. Subsequently, once your final review is completed and locked by your mentor, you can gain access to the application to membership forms. We then, in training support, complete our review of your CA diary to ensure that it meets the requirements, and if you have all of that in order, we will approve your CA diary. So your period of training, or your REQ period, as well as passing your FEE, you are required to complete a recognised experience for qualification, or your REQ. That is determined by what your educational background is, which made you eligible to join the programme to start with. So if you came through ATI, you will have an REQ period of 4 years. If you came with an undergraduate, that is 3.5 years. And if you have a master's in accounting, well, then your REQ period is 3 years. And it's important to note that you are required to demonstrate your relevant work experience for the entirety of that period. So from the start date of your training period to the end date of your REQ period. So looking now on how you become eligible for your final review. First and foremost, you need to have completed your REQ period, be that in a training contract or on a flexible route. All your diary entries must have a status of locked, so there can be no outstanding regular diary entries or no outstanding 6 monthly review requests. Having any open requests will prevent you from gaining access to the final review. All of your competency requirements must be met. We'll talk a wee bit more about those later on. And the minimum number of required days, which is based on your REQ period, must have been attained. A minimum of 5 6-monthly mentor reviews must also have been recorded. So looking at the competency requirements a wee bit further, the competency requirements that you have met in the core group, so that's your professional values, your business environment, and your financial reporting. And then additionally, you need to have at least one competency group from the technical area of either auditing, taxation, finance, or information technology. And these competencies need to be met at integrate level. So you'll notice that we are not asking you to meet the requirement at understand and apply. And that's because the requirement for admission to membership is that you have met them at integrate level. A common question we'll get is, I have missed out on a couple of competencies at understand or apply level, and that's okay. It can be quite common and normal to miss out on the odd competency here and there at understand or apply. Provided you have met them at integrate, that is what the requirement is for admission to membership. However, we should see a progression from understand to apply to integrate during your journey from year 1 right through to year 3 and further. So if you have met all of these requirements, an overnight process must run, and the CA diary and your CA diary would be picked up by the system as being eligible, and the following morning you should see this request here for request for final review. So by selecting this, you will be your mentor will receive notification on their dashboard. Now at this point I wouldn't ignore that, insofar as I wouldn't forget that you've sent the final review request. The next day you need to ensure that you advise your mentor that you have submitted a final review request and follow up with them and ensure that they complete that final review and that they lock it as soon as possible. Once your mentor has completed and locked the final review, another overnight process must run, and the following day you should have the option on your dashboard to submit an application to membership, such as highlighted on the screen here. So before we move on, just a reminder, firstly, you need to have completed your CA diary. An overnight process then runs, and you should have your final review option on your dashboard. Once that is completed and locked, another overnight process must run, and that then will give you access to your membership forms. So this is what your application to membership page will look like. Once you hit the application to membership option, a page will come up with these 5 steps. You need to follow the steps, and just to remind you that the person who signs your application to membership forms must be a member of the institute themselves. So this year we have had 5 options or opportunities to submit an application to membership. Our last remaining opportunity is the 5th of December, which is a little over 3 weeks away. So before that date, our advice to you today is that you do a self-review and ensure that your diary has met the required standard and that you have completed it according to the guidance. What's listed on the screen here are some common errors that we have been seeing a lot of over the last few admission dates. And if you can avoid making these mistakes. If you have these mistakes made already, you have an opportunity now to correct them, and you should then sail through the whole process. So I'm just going to go through some of these common errors that we are seeing a lot of recently. Firstly, your learning levels are not recorded as per the guidance. So if you have started off in your training contract, or if you've started off in your new role, the first year of experience should be recorded at understand level. And then as you progress through your training contract, year 2, your learning level should progress to apply. Then as you gain more responsibility and are giving the lead in a lot of your tasks and jobs, you should be at integrate level in year 3. So we should be seeing no cases of, apply or integrate too early in your during your training period. Secondly, we see entries that have been standalone entries created solely for study leave, or indeed any period of leave. Sometimes we see entries that have been created for annual leave. So if you think of it logically, while you are on any period of leave, you cannot claim relevant work experience. However, in order to save a regular diary entry, you need to have selected a competency, a minimum of one competency. So if you're creating a standalone entry, you then have to select a competency. That is why all periods of leave should be incorporated into regular diary entries. So, for example, if you create an entry for 20 days or 1 month's duration, and you during that period of time are on annual leave or study leave for 1 week, well, then you detail the relevant experience that you have gained for whatever number of days, 15 days, say. You then select the 5 days you were on study leave for or annual leave for, and everything is coded appropriately. The next one is the use of our referral to narrative that has already been used for other competencies. So you should be providing, or should be aiming to provide, a unique descriptor for all competencies claimed. So if you have provided narrative in support of, for example, an audit competency, you cannot refer to that narrative in support of, say, one of your core competencies. And similarly, across the competency group in the core group, you shouldn't be using the same narrative to support competencies across competency groups. Another point I was going to make about that is that you should be demonstrating to the regulator that you fully understand how each competency links specifically to your period of training. So try to avoid a generic narrative or a one-size-fits-all approach. Entries for experience longer than 60 days or 3 months. So you should aim to create diary entries for a minimum of 1 month or 20 days, and you can claim up to 60 days at a time, but no longer than that. Another common error we see are situations where trainees understate their experience. So for example, if you have an entry where you're claiming experience for 60 days and you only select 2 competencies, that's not sufficient. You should be claiming all competencies relevant to the work experience that you have completed. So, for a 60-day period, you should ensure that you select all competencies for that period. there is no such thing as selecting the same competency too many times. Yes, the requirement is that you have selected it once for admission to membership at integrate level. However, you can claim that the same competencies over and over again, provided it is relevant to that period of time and at whatever level. But there is nothing to stop you from claiming experience or competencies when it is relevant to the work that you have carried out. Experience recorded outside of your training contract. At this point, everybody should know what the start date of their training period or training contract is and what the end date is. So your first diary entry typically should have a start date of that coincides with the start date of your training contract. So if your training contract has a start date of the 1st of November, well then the start date of your first diary entry should be the 1st of November. If your training contract has an end date of the 31st of October, well then the end date of your last diary entry should be the 31st of October. You can find, if you don't know what the start and end date of your training period is, if you go into the history on your dashboard, you will be, if you select that, you will be able to see when the start and end date of your training period is. The last one I'm going to touch on is unacceptable 6 monthly reviews or final mentor reviews. And what do I mean by that? Well, the 6 monthly reviews are your mentor reviewing you every 6 months and detailing what you have done in the previous 6 months, what tasks you were given, how you performed, and what's the plan going forward. So again, there should be no generic copy and paste of what you did, because each 6 months should be different. There will be some crossover and some instances where you carried out the same tasks, but no 6 months should be the same, and therefore there should be no generic copy and paste of what you did. Similarly with your final mentor review. Your final mentor review is your mentor giving a review of your total training period. So that should tell a story in itself. How you performed, what jobs you were given, what skills you acquired, and how they recommend that you become a member. It's up to you to ensure that these reviews are up to the standard. So again, I'd say you need to do a self-review of your diary and ensure that you don't have any of these errors. So now I'm just going to pass you over to Hugh, who will give a demonstration of what these errors might look like.
Thanks very much, Orna.
Just bear with me.
Okay, thanks very much again, Orna. Hopefully you should be able to see my screen at this point.
Yeah.
Great, so this is a test account that we use. It's not a real trainee, so there's no confidence being breached here. What I want to show you are 4 diary entries here. There's no mentor reviews. It's really set up for the purpose of this demonstration. So the title is quite important. So give us as much information as you can. I've added this in for obvious reasons. This is what not to do in a CA diary record. So what we have in this case is somebody that's preparing for CAP 2 revision and resets, and they've detailed a diary entry from 8th of June to the 30th of June. And as Orna had rightly pointed out, to be able to save a diary entry, you need to select at least one competency element. Study leave or any revision work like that is not work experience. So therefore, you should not be claiming any competencies, and therefore, as Orna has rightly said, you should build in your study leave or any other leave for that matter into a work experience entry, and you're simply detailing the number of days that you were out on leave, so you'll select the appropriate category of leave, and that way you're not overstating any days and you're not overstating any leave competencies for leave periods. So that's what not to do with study leave. The trainee user guide gives an example of how to approach that, if you want to refer back to that. Here we have a different example. Again, I've added in don't do this. So this is accounts prep and audit work. That might be applicable to somebody that's working in a general accountancy practice. The period here is the 2nd of August to 30th of September, totaling 39 days, which is not in itself unacceptable. Anything up to 3 months, as Orna said, would be accepted. We have an audit diary entry here from somebody that's performed as an audit junior. They have selected multiple audit competencies, AU 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. Quite a detailed description off the bat for the first one, and then they've literally just copied and pasted that narrative and across all of the other competencies. So really, as Orna said, we need a unique and specific descriptor for each of the competencies. And just to note, it doesn't have to be 700 characters, which is the maximum character count. Really, when it comes down to it, a shorter, more specific descriptor may well be more acceptable, but certainly copying and pasting a narrative down through different elements wouldn't be accepted. You might find in some of them, you might go as described in AU5 and add in some further information, but copy and pasted would be rejected at the point of our internal review. Another example Orna's given where you're cross-referring, you're not putting in a specific descriptor for competency elements, you're cross-referring across different groups. So this is an IT competency that's been claimed, and the descriptor is simply CAU3. So if you're claiming a competency, you need to have a specific descriptor. The trainee is required for any diary entry that's got audit experience to claim at least one non-audit competency element. This trainee selected 3, which in itself is grand. Problem is, we've got 3 competencies, again, where it's a copy and paste. Again, we see the behaviour Orna has outlined as not to do, as they've recorded PV competencies from professional values, and they're cross-referring certainly to the audit group. Now, it might be on occasion, if you've recorded a competency within, say, professional values or maybe financial reporting, that the descriptor you've put in actually does describe both of those competencies. So on occasion and within a group, this type of behaviour, CPV2 in this case, would be considered acceptable, but sometimes trainees are running away with that model to the point where there's no tangible information. Again, the last one are 2 from the business environment, and it's a copy and paste. So that's what not to do. CAU3, again, it's cross-referring to a different group. We need a short, specific descriptor for each competency element. And the last thing on this one is the reflection and learning is not very helpful. This was a busy period, doesn't tell us a whole lot. Some of the trainees we've met in recent times are telling us that what they're doing is recording the reflection and learning first when they go into the screen, and that helps them to set the tone and understand what they covered in the period, and then work back the way through the diary entry. So that's something to consider. The next diary entry is a pharma client and audit. Again, this is what not to do. It's a period detailing 36 days again, which again in itself is not problematic. However, once you're detailing diary entries for that length of period, we would expect to see a lot of competencies, all relevant competencies from the technical area. So in this case, audit, and a sufficient number of competencies and descriptors in the non-audit competencies or the non-technical areas. What you've got here is a trainee that's put in one PV competency, and they haven't even taken the time to make sure they've spelt correctly. So you can see there's a bit of an error there in their spelling / grammar. So again, in this one, 36, it's a month and a half's experience. You have 2 short competency descriptors based on an audit and one that is really insufficient. The reflection and learning arguably is a bit more acceptable, but that's the type of thing that would be rejected, especially at the integrated learning level, which is key. So you need to just support your competencies, and descriptors need to support the number of days being claimed. So the longer the period, the more competencies we would expect to see. Now, the last one I'm going to show you is somebody, again, that's working in the audit space, and apologies to those of you that are not working in audit, but the principles really do apply in a lot of these. So this is an audit of a charity and of a chain of restaurants, 24 work experience days. We've got the audit information detailed there. What the trainee has done in this case is explained that they worked in an audit of a chain of restaurants incorporated in Northern Ireland. That's very valuable information for the ACA qualification and for when we're assessing potential eligibility for the audit qualification post-membership. The next competency element is specifying the other work on the charity. Again, explaining in accordance with the various different instruments, FRS 102, Companies Act. And again, the trainee is specifying the competency that relates to the particular audit that was conducted. So again, now, when you move into the non-audit competencies, there's a couple of formatting issues there which can be common in the CA diary, so don't worry about that. But again, it's important to specify which of these engagements are you actually referencing. You can see charity and restaurants. And what we see there with the trainee as well, aside from 1 or 2 little spelling errors, is actually a really good reflection on the work that was completed during the period. And it really does help for you as a trainee to be able to reflect not only in the technical work that you completed, but how that work has helped you to develop your business communication skills, etc. So there's much more to being a chartered accountant than just your technical competencies. So that's 3 examples of what not to do in your CA diary record, and one where we actually have somebody that's documented a very well structured competency profile for audits. So that's from me. I'll hand you back over now to Anna, I believe.
Thanks, Hugh. I'm just going to reshare my screen.
Yep, can see your slides there.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Just fizzle down. That's great. Thanks, Hugh. I'll just add in then just a little bit on the reflection on learning, actually, Hugh, because it's another thing we see. The reflection on learning should be you looking back with, in a reflective mindset on how the job went or what you did in that period. It shouldn't really be a rehash of the descriptors for the competencies that you've claimed. So just to bear that in mind also. So look, once you have gone through, your self-review and ascertained that you haven't made those errors, or if you have made them, I'd advise that you fix them now. You're 3 weeks out from the deadline. So, that I think would be a job that you will get great benefit from when it comes to actually going through the whole process. And then when we review your diary, we'll just be able to approve it immediately. And if you don't hear from us, that means that we have approved your diary. If those errors are on your record, well, then you will hear from us. Just a wee bit on the audit qualification and its requirements. So if you have trained in a recognised training firm supervised by a statutory audit, and you are thinking of, down the road that you'd like to apply for the audit qualification, you need to have passed your FEE and your audit elective, as well as training in a recognised training firm supervised by a statutory audit, and received at least 46 weeks practical training. So you might ask, well, what's the relevance of this at this point if we can't apply until after we've passed into membership? But as part of the audit qualification review, the reviewer who is considering your eligibility uses the information that you have provided in your CA diary and how and what has been recorded in your CA diary. So this is why at this point it is very important for you to ensure that you have recorded your audit experience correctly and accurately. So again, if it is something that you were thinking of and down the line, it's important that you get it right at this point. We direct you to the guidance. If you are again going to go down this road, please do read the guidance to ensure that you have recorded your audit days accurately. So the supports and resources are all located on the CA Diary resources page of the website. We firstly have, as I've just mentioned, on how to record your audit days. We have both ROI and NI and what the requirements are. The professional development requirements document drills into the competencies and how they relate to the relevant work experience that you gain from month to month. We have a mentor guide, which all of your mentors will have access to, and that details, from how to review and lock an entry to what is acceptable as a 6-monthly review and a final review. There is the trainee guide for yourselves. There's also the sample entry guide, as well as the training regulations. If you are a flexible route trainee, there is also the mentor approval form, which you can download and fill out and submit if that is applicable to you. There are a number of short tutorials that are well worth watching, if that is needed at this point. So we have on the call today, we have Hugh and we have Rebecca Keegan. There is also Rachel, who looks after the audit qualification. So if you have any queries at all, please do pop us an email to trainingsupport@charteredaccountants.ie or give us a call on the number on screen, with any queries that you may have around completing your CA diary with a view to submitting an application to membership. So if you have any questions at all, I'd welcome you to ask those now.
Orna, Hugh here, I might just come in. There's a couple of questions that are kind of outstanding.
Yeah.
I might just read them through. Can we put down the kind of description when on study leave? So the answer for study leave is we don't want to know, with the greatest of respect, what you're doing when you're on study leave or what you're studying for. It's not work experience. The only thing that you need to detail is the number of days you were unavailable to gain experience through whatever leave category, and that's included, as we've said, and a work experience entry. The next one is, my training is not in statutory audit. Should I still record audit days, or can I select assurance work and record no audit days? So yes, if you're working in audit but it's not considered statutory or meet the definition of other audit days, you can still claim the relevant competencies, but you shouldn't record any audit days. And there's a detailed audit guidance document and some videos on the website. So yes, audit competencies, but no audit days if it doesn't meet the definitions. Are we able to refer to a competency from the summary description narrative? I think Lorna covered that. So the reflection should be the reflection on the overall period, and the specifics around competency should be attached to each competency element. Does the person that logs in your 6-month entry have to be ACA qualified? So the answer is no. Excuse me, that is not a requirement, but it is, as Orna said, required that a Chartered Accountants Ireland member signs off on your final experience at the end of your training period. Another one, I've completed my work experience requirement and will be resitting the FEA core in January. Should I apply for membership once I get my results in February? So the advice there is, you've completed your training contract. We would hope that you've met all of the requirements for a final mentor review. So therefore, you should, at this point, ensure that you've got your diary completed up to and including the final mentor review. And then when you pass your FAE, it's a simple case of applying for membership. So don't leave the CA diary till after the exam results come out. Complete that now. Does your elective have to be hit at every level? Electives are on the academic side. There's no electives in the CA diary. What there is an area of experience, either auditing, tax, finance, or IT. You don't have to hit all those competencies at the understand, apply, and integrate levels, although that's the normal trajectory, certainly in the case of audit trainees, where we would expect to see most of the competencies that understand, apply, and integrate. Am I okay to keep going on, or how are we doing for time?
Yeah, no, plenty of time, keep going.
Grand. When entering study leave days, do we include the days off for the exams themselves as study leave or time off in lieu? Time off in lieu really would indicate that you've accrued a number of overtime days. So if you're tapping into that accrued overtime, that's what time off in lieu is. So study leave and time off in lieu are not the same thing, although you may extend your study leave that's prescribed by your firm by using some accrued time off in lieu. So it would be normal then to see study leave days recorded in the entry and time off in lieu, or possibly annual leave. So it can be more than one category of leave over the course of the diary entry period. What's the process for audit membership after you qualify? So after you're admitted to membership, there will be a bit of time will pass, and then for anybody that's in theory met the requirements for the audit qualification, so that's passed the audit elective and have at least 46 weeks audit experience, we will write to you and invite you to apply for the audit qualification. That won't happen straight away, but it will happen hopefully within a few months of you being admitted to membership. So we will contact you if you've met those initial requirements to invite you to apply for the audit qualification. Do you need to hit all competencies in audit and audit and other for the audit qualification? The answer is no. If you're working in audit and gaining that experience, you will hit all the audit competencies, but you don't have to hit audit other. It's usually one or the other, audit or auditing other, or maybe a combination of both. That's not part of the requirements for the audit qualification, but it is for membership. How many words are required for the reflection section? Like the competency elements, there's a maximum of 700 characters, which is one paragraph. There's no specific amount. It should be something that's tangible and meaningful based on the period that's been recorded. If I use copy and paste and want to go back and change it, how do I alter the diary entry? Your mentor can unlock any diary entries, as can the training support unit. So once they're unlocked, you can work away and make those updates and make sure that they're locked in after being edited and resubmitted. The Generate CA Diary report is not working for me, and it says there's a test report, your page could not be loaded. Sounds like a technical glitch that we can assist with. So if you want to drop us a little email on that, we can liaise with our web team and get that organised for you. I'm doing a part-time master's with support from my company. Can I include my days at university as experience in my training contract? No, it's only work experience gained for your employment as part of your training contract that's relevant work experience. If I hit my required days before my contract finishes and have all my competencies at integrate level, do I need to continue recording experience until the contract finishes? The answer is yes. I mean, that's some of the best experience you're going to get. So you should be recording all relevant work experience up to and including the end of the contract. Sorry, I'm confused. For the study leave period, should be recorded experiences from previous months. When it comes to recording study leave, my advice to everybody is go to the trainee user guide from the CA Diary resources page and locate the section where we explain that very clearly, how to approach that. We've covered off the bit on the audit qualification, corrective action. If corrective action in the CA diaries are needed, well, we have to wait until the next application window where possible. Yes, sometimes it depends on the timing of any corrective actions. We hope that they won't be required, but if they are, it depends on the final deadline that would be communicated to you. So just a final clarification, is there a scenario where we can link competencies to other narratives? Again, it's covered in the guidance. If I would suggest you go to the sample entries guide, where we have sample entries and do's and don'ts. They also, we have the CA Diary checklist for trainees, where it explains what the expectation is in terms of documenting competencies. And I think we'll leave it at that. Orna, for now, I'll hand back over to you just to do the wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. And it's great to hear all the questions. I'm going to leave this page open just for a couple of wee minutes, because I really want you to take this message. These errors are what could potentially hold up your whole application and the whole process. So if you do your self-review, I've said it a couple of times already, review your diary yourself against the guidance, against these common errors listed here. And if you have made those errors so far, you have time to correct them. Ask your mentor to unlock, or indeed ourselves, if you need any entries unlocked. You know, if you have any questions that fall out of this, well, then contact us. There are just over 3 weeks away from the next deadline. Rose from admissions is also on the call today. Just to reiterate the message, Rose deals with the actual application process. She doesn't deal with the CA diary. So if you have questions around the CA diary, contact training support. And again, just get in touch with us at any point if you have any questions that fall out of the presentation today. So thanks to everybody for joining us. We hope not to be in contact with you, because that means that we'll have approved your diary. But if you have any questions at all, please do get in touch. Thanks a million. Bye bye.